back to Tavern Between Dimensions, our monthly TTRPG podcast. We're going to talk about something really exciting, and there's a really juicy bit right at the end.
So Dan,
Yes.
our most recent videos have come to a close, and they were all our ONE D&D special. But the ONE D&D stuff doesn't end, does it?
No. This train goes on ever onwards. We thought we were ahead of the curve. Ignore the fact that we were actually 2 months behind it, but no, we're more up to date now because the D&D gods over at Wizards of the Coast heard our pleas and they released a new playtest. And we're only going to be 1 month behind the curve on this one.
Hey, and hopefully this time I won't have to splice in a short part of a video to make up for a really stupid prediction.
But yes, the new playtest is out, and this one specifically, like the name on the front page is expert classes.
This one was girthy.
This was a big playtest. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that they covered. The knee-jerk reaction hearing that title was, oh god, are they doing like advanced classes? Oh god,
prestige classes. Don't put it past them. Like,
well, exactly right. But no, we looking into it, and I know some of us have kind of glanced through the document as well. Expert classes is a role, a category of classes within the new playtest. So yeah, I guess kind of looking at it, starting at the front, all the way on page 1.
Out of 37, by the way.
That's 1 of 37. Yeah,
pretty extensive.
I'm going to promise you that this will be a breakneck review, but I'm going to break that promise.
Yeah, we may skip a few pages for like,
yes,
because the spell page itself is probably worth skipping because there's a lot of spells.
Yes, there's a lot of stuff in here that's interesting to read, but then there's also a lot of stuff that you kind of like when you start reading between the lines and seeing implications that are being made that you kind of realize is going to make an impact further on down the line. But bottom right of page 1, what's ahead in the ONE D&D playtest? There's a lot of bullet points.
That there were.
There's a lot of bullet points. So I guess my first question is exactly how backwards compatible is this going to be?
I thought that as well. It some of these changes, I don't know how you could look at an older book and be like, this fits.
Sure. I mean, yeah, we in the last episode we were mentioning that if the classes change, if the races change, fine. Like what can stay? The adventure books. Storm King's Thunder, Prince of the Apocalypse, whatever. But then there's 2 sneaky bullet points right here that say that they're revising encounters and revising monsters. So
is this going to be as backwards compatible as Sony PlayStation is with its older games?
With their tape players, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's gonna I'm
disclaimer, I'm a Sony player. I don't want to just in case anyone says, oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to question how backwards compatible this is going to be because it looks like everything's being overhauled. And to be fair, there's enough stuff that could be overhauled that is worth it. But yeah, backwards compatibility, that's something of the past.
Then again, like they have said that a few of these things are things they've already teased. So possibly monster changes would be some of the teases we've already seen in other books, like the changes they made to abilities.
In Mordenkainen's.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so. For sure. On page 2, bottom left, we can see the class groups. So, this document focuses on experts. We're also going to get mages, priests, and warriors. So, I know some of the doomsaying was saying that we were going to move back to a 4th edition style of like controller, striker, defender, leader. Doesn't seem quite like that. But one thing I did notice is that monk is in warriors. And they are the masters of combat who can deal and endure many wounds, which makes me wonder: are monks going to get a bit more buff?
Tanky.
I mean, monks themselves can get a bit tanky. I do have an AC 23 monk in another game.
Sure. But arguably, if you step on their toe, they'll just kind of
they'll fall over. They'll fold like a piece of paper.
Yeah, they'll hit the deck quicker than the European football striker.
Though, like if you're gonna be too locked onto that, like, is a bard really an expert? I mean, most of the fun bards we've ever played, right? They're clumsy, they make mistakes, they're a bit here and there. Are they ever really experts?
As a bard player, I take offense to that.
Good. You're playing it wrong. No.
I think it'll be interesting to see, like, we'll go into why the Bard, Ranger, and Rogue classes are experts, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there are any additional kind of common features between the mages, which is Sorcerer, Warlock, Wizard, the priests, Cleric, Druid, and Paladin, and then the warriors, Barbarian, Fighter, Monk. Also, on page 2, one of the things is all of the class capstones. So all of the level 20 abilities that are eye-watering, they've been moved to level 18, which is cool.
I mean, how many people get to that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's the highest you've ever got in levels?
So, like, legitimately, level 15. And that was a 3.5 year long Prince of the Apocalypse campaign. Because, I mean, it's good. Like, you don't have to get to 20. At 20, instead, you get an epic boon, which is like a super feat. But yeah, that's cool. So, on to the classes itself. So, as I say, Bard, Ranger, and Rogue are on the chopping board this time. Again, we're going to caveat by saying there's probably going to be a lot of stuff here that there's going to be a lot of stuff thrown at a wall to see what sticks. But yeah, Bardic Inspiration is the first place we'll stop off at.
Yes.
That's the first kind of change. Everything else looks very, very similar. Like the same number of spells, same hit dice, and so on.
I did sort of like when I was reading this and listening to the video about this one, I think it could be an interesting change.
Yeah, so the first bit that I noticed, and this probably is me with my DM hat on, when another creature within 60 feet of you that can see or hear fails a D20 test. So I'll pause right there. First things first, D20 test.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bards, I mean, Carl's certainly fallen afoul of this, like the differentiation between ability check, between
saving throw,
skill check,
So now it's just a D20 test.
I'm happy with that change.
Smooth that out. But also fails a D20 test. So
subjective.
Yes. Like, especially, I mean, that's obviously still kind of looking at that very binary, you do it or you do not do it. But like, do you get to roll it if you fail forward? There are some checks where it's worse if you roll more than 5 less, or you get better results if you roll more than 5 more. What's a fail? Like, you know?
I quite like that it's a reaction though, rather than you're preempting. It is. You used to be proactive, didn't it? In that you give it to someone and they would use it at some point. But I quite like that it is there to like buff them up if they're.
Yes, because it is. That's the other big thing. It is a reaction now rather than a bonus action. There's quite a few reaction bonuses that can be handed out where it specifies you do it when you see the dice roll, but not before you hear the result of whether it's a pass or fail. But now, because you have to know if it fails or not. So that's kind of different. But yes, Bardic Inspiration, just chucking them out as a reaction, that's cool, because arguably a lot of bards weren't using reactions for much else.
Usually cutting actions, words and things, but
yeah, for sure. But also you can heal with it.
Yes, that's a great change. That is a fantastic change. But as a reaction that you can basically mitigate damage. Like, oh no, you just took 10 damage here, have 5 of it back.
Yeah, so I suppose in a way that's like cutting words for damage.
Yeah.
And
basically,
without annoying the DM a lot.
And without yes. So yeah, next up, in terms of number of uses, because at the moment it's charisma uses, now it's bardic proficiency bonuses.
I prefer that change with a lot of things, because when they were binding it to ability scores, that was always very limiting, because that was one thing that at some point that would become fixed and would never change. So having it on proficiency means it as your talents grow, your ability to do things. So I really appreciate that change for anything that they've been doing.
Yeah, it's a slower uptick, but it also means when you get to your ability score increases, you don't feel bad for taking a feat.
Yes.
So moving swiftly on to spell casting. So
I took a while to get my head around this.
Yeah, so
I don't think I've got it right now, so I'm really waiting for you guys to speak.
So the spellcasting lists have been homogenized into 3 separate spell casting lists: arcane, divine, and
primal.
Thank you. So here it now says you get to choose from the arcane list any spell from the arcane list, so long as they are on one of these 4 schools of magic: divination, enchantment, illusion, transmutation. Okay, cool. So that I'll be honest, I've kind of forgot about the schools of magic when we were discussing this in the last episode.
Yeah.
But it does mean that your bard isn't going to be able to take fireball necessarily.
I think Magic Secret still lets you do that.
Correct, yeah. So, but within divination, enchantment, illusion, transmutation, those are the kind of spells that were on the bard's list anyway.
Much, yeah.
So that's cool. The real big one is that bards were never really blessed with very many spells. The number of spells known was relatively small, but now they get to choose them like clerics.
Yes, I appreciate that. Again, I'm going to say this a lot. I appreciate that change because I definitely with EOE with my character, I picked my spells and they were my spells. At that point, if I had talkie spells, I was stuck with talkie spells in combat, which sometimes don't help. So you had to mix and match those sort of talkie, and you didn't really have very specialized spells because at some point you're like, I need an attack. I love this, the way that we can turn around now and be like, we're about to go into a dungeon. I don't need these talkie spells anymore. Let's play with these.
Let's actually take find, trap, or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think this is the same with all these expert classes. It's now this big change. And as a bard player, I appreciate it because I get to, if I be able to enjoy looking at the spell list more. Because before it was like, I level up. I can open the book now and look at the spell list. I take that one, close the book, put it away. Now I have a reason to have the PHB with me the whole time. Say if I was doing this in person, because now I have more versatility. I can, as they said in the videos, it adds that versatility to the classes and makes them more fun.
Yeah. Speaking of versatility, in the top right of page 5, we have Songs of Restoration. So Songs of Rest at the moment is you get extra dice, you get an extra d6 when you have a short rest.
Yes.
But now Songs of Restoration gives you free healing spells. So at various levels, you get Healing Word, Lesser Restoration, Mass Healing Word, etc., etc. That's cool because talking about I think most bards are going to pick up Healing Word, right?
Yes.
It's thematically appropriate. It's a good spell, but now you don't have to choose it as one of your spells. You just have it prepared, so you've got an extra slot where you can put in a more fun or niche spell that you might not have otherwise taken,
or one to really annoy your DM with.
One's really annoying the DM with, yeah. One thing that might gnash the teeth of the bards across the lands: Jack of all trades is moved up to 5th level. So you don't get your half proficiency bonus until 5th level. I mean, cool. Like, it's fine. Something had to budge.
Most bards forgot that they had that by the time they've been playing a while, though, because it was just, I've got good stats in everything.
Yes, yes. But I think it's, in a way, it's a nice kind of thing when everyone's kind of, when other classes are going, ooh, I've got extra attack, or ooh, I've got 3rd level spells, or whatever. Like when they have that power bump, to have the bard's skill pool bump in a similar way. It's still only +1 at that level to the stuff that you haven't got proficiency in, but it's +1.
Numbers are numbers.
Numbers is numbers. At level 7, you get your bardic inspirations back on a short rest. That's same as before, but now there's a nice little. If you roll a 1, you don't spend the bardic inspiration, so you get a little bit of protection in case you fluff. And between myself and you PTG boys, we all know how nice it is when we get a fizzle or 1 on a magic dice and we get to take it back.
So some more than others know about rolling ones.
I've never heard of that.
Is there even a 1 on the dice? Says Tom.
Occasionally a 5.
Yes. By the time we get to page 7 on this, at 6th level, we have Cunning Inspiration. This was the next one that kind of caught my eye. So this is a 6th level ability from the College of Law, which is the subclass that we have been presented in this book. You get advantage, air quotes, on your bardic inspiration. You get to roll twice and use the highest. That's cool.
That is, it's a nice addition.
So, and it makes me wonder if there's going to be many other kind of advantage type benefits in other classes, because it's just a nice thing to have, I guess.
But by that point in your career, you want your bardic inspirations to be really having an impact.
Yeah,
precisely. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, also within that kind of section, there is now a suggested prepared bard spell list. It's supposed to be designed for if you need a bard on the fly real quick, then you can kind of go, right, a 7th level bard has just learned compulsion and also has all the other spells up until that point. Looking at it, I mean, it brings me more hope of the backwards compatibility, because the bard as presented here doesn't look all too different to what we have now. There's tweaks, there's bolts have been tightened, bolts have been loosened, but overall, touch wood, looks the same. Page 8, ranges.
This, I think, is the biggest amount of changes from what I've seen. This
possibly
one,
rightly so.
Rangers have always had a bit of a rough deal in 5th edition. I think it's about time that they got a little bit of fun.
No longer.
Considering everyone in the world loves to do that while they're playing D&D, you know, it's overdue, isn't it? So yeah.
I mean, no longer do the Ranger players need to bring Tasha's Cauldron of Everything as a compulsory book. A lot of the changes in Tasha's are kind of rolled into what we see here. I mean, right out the gate, biggest change for me, spellcasting at level 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
So originally Rangers used to get at level 2. Not only that, you get cantrips.
Yes.
Whereas, so the half casters of 5th edition, Ranger shows that it's no longer a half caster per se. So it's a slower spell progression than the other classes, but you get it from day 1. Now, that makes me wonder if paladins and artificers, who are also quote unquote half casters, if they're going to get a similar treatment. Are we going to see paladins with level 1?
That magic just increases on the whole.
Yeah, I mean, paladins have to choose a fighting style to get cantrips, but if they get it base similar to rangers, that's an interesting thing. But yes, so spellcasting for level 1, that's cool. Favored enemy, which about 14 iterations by my counting. But now it's a super hunter's mark.
Fundamentally, you have the hunter's mark spell always prepared.
Yes, and you don't count it as one of the spells you have prepared.
No concentration either.
No concentration. Always lasts as long as you want it. You just whack it on someone, zip it around as a bonus action.
Yeah.
Can't get rid of it. Super hunter's mark. So there's a point here about class features being alternative versions of spells. Slightly tweaked version of spells. We'll come back to that a little bit later. I'm wondering if, again, this is going to be a common thread, where instead of going, you can see in the dark, but blah blah blah, here's all the rules, they'll just say you have dark vision. You can, something like that.
Well, fundamentally, you've already mentioned it in Bard. They're giving Bards the healing spells. Now they're giving the Ranger these spells. You know, they are fundamentally
the killing spells.
Yeah, they're putting the spells that were just. I think Anton talked about this in sort of partially in Ranton. There are some spells that just belong on certain classes, and it's begrudging that you have to pick them. It's now at that point where just give it to them. They're there.
Yeah, I mean, we can refer back to the fact that Eldritch Blast is no longer on the spell list, so we can assume that Warlocks will just have Eldritch Blast as a class feature, rather than being one of your very valuable cantrip choices. Yes, so Super Hunter's Mark. On to page 10 of the document, and this is the first iteration of extra attack. Now, the reason I kind of made a note here is because when it comes to rangers and attacking with multiple weapons, one of the big changes is 2-weapon fighting. So all of the Dritz clones out there will be kind of keeping an eye on this and the wording very closely.
Totally legitimate characters, Dan.
The extra attack bit, it basically reads the same as it does now. You can attack twice instead of once. But yeah, we'll reference that a little bit later. And then a lot of the stuff that the Rangers get up through the levels, anyone who's using the add-ons from Tasha's, this will all look pretty similar. You get a bit faster at level 7. You get expertise. Beg my pardon, I completely forgot.
That is a big change.
Yes, the Rangers are now part of the expert role, and the thing that binds them is they all have the expertise skill. So that's something that the Ranger's going to pick up, and the idea is that realistically you are going to whack it in, say, survival and something else, just so you can be the master of the wilderness. Level 11 is an ability called Tireless, and it refers to exhaustion. So if you're exhausted when you finish a short rest, your level exhaustion decreases by 1. On its own, that might not really mean anything, but again, we'll come back to that a little bit later.
Depends on your DM a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but you'll see that actually that's the picture that paints is a very different picture to what we have now currently, which I find very, very interesting. So then we have the Hunter, which is the Ranger subclass.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of similar to the Hunter from what I can gather. So not only have you got this Super Hunter's Mark from Favored Enemy, the Hunter specifically just does extra d8s of damage on a whim. So yes, it's not even something you have to mark. It doesn't have to be your favorite foe, your favorite enemy when you hit it. But you can just do a d8 extra damage if it's missing some of its hit points. So
if you smell blood.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. I think the way they described it is they wanted Hunter to be exactly as the name suggests. They are the best at hunting down the foes that they have set their sights on. So, it was definitely just extra damage to the person that you've put into your reticule.
Wait a little bit, set a trap, have it take a bit of damage, and then pop out the stealth, which you've got expertise in, and blat it. Having the Rangers be the masters of kind of the wilderness and the natural world, being able to find out all of a creature's, like a lot of a creature's stats, if it's got your Hunter's Mark on it, that's the Hunter's Lore ability at level 6. So, level 10, multi-attack. This is kind of what we were mentioning earlier. So, the rule reads, you now always have Conjure Barrage prepared, and it doesn't count against the number of spells you can prepare. Okay, cool. The interesting bit is when it says you can also cast this spell with a first and second level spell slot. When you do, the spell's damage is reduced by 1d8 for each spell slot, for each slot level below third.
This one has opened up somewhat of a can of worms from what I've seen online.
Yeah,
because
downcasting.
He kind of allured to the fact that this may become a thing with other spells in the videos for Ranger. And from what I've seen, a lot of people have been trying to figure out that how would this work? Can you now downcast a fireball? Can you downcast
level 1 fireball?
A level 1 fireball? What would that look like? Can you take
fireball.
Like Leomund's tiny hut and make it Leomund's like tiny outhouse?
I mean, my knee-jerk reaction to this was it won't be as widespread as some people may be thinking it is, because for example, like we referenced fireball, and I kind of jokingly made the point, it was like, oh fine, I'll just have people throw one like first level fireballs that do 4d6 damage to everyone within 30 feet rather than 8d6, like whoop-de-doo, like like oh no, woe is me. But on this I like it, like, because I mean, rangers aren't blessed with very many high level spell slots anyway, so being able to do something with those first and second level slots is great. Again, I wonder if this is just going to be a case of like, I wonder if this kind of downcasting is going to be more restricted to class features. Because if we take out the magical aspect, this is just a ranger going full kind of Legolas and just machine gunning arrows at something, just spraying and praying. But yeah, it's an interesting idea. I wonder how it's going to get distributed across the other classes.
It could well be that the reason they're explaining how it works in this expert class is that they're not planning on making it across every class. So much like you alluded to, it is only in these, subclass features or whatever.
Yeah, precisely. But yes, that's kind of the last thing of note I found in Rangers. Rogues, or as they're correctly named, Rouges.
Rogues.
You know what? Looking through it, I didn't really make any notes until page 14, which
I made a couple of notes because of the video of through what he was describing of how Thief works, and I did particularly love his description of their design process for Thief, which was rogues cheat, so let's just design them to cheat. And yes. I chuckled quite hard at that one.
Yeah, looking through the base rogue, most things haven't changed. I think there's nothing there that jumped out at me that being really any different. But yeah, getting to Thief. Actually, sorry, no, before Thief. Page 14, Subtle Strikes, which is the 13th level ability. You now have advantage on any attack rolls that target a creature that is within 5 feet of one of your allies. So not only do you get sneak attack against those targets, you also get advantage. That's spicy. Sure, it's 13th level, but that's spicy because that's not a thing at the moment.
At that point, you're automatically having sneak attack because of it, right, as well?
For sure.
Because you'll have advantage.
100%.
Yeah, the way they describe that is by that point in the career as well, like they know how to get someone. They've been watching long enough. They've been with the party. Like, I know he's going to move that way, so if I fire my bolt here, I know I'm going to hit someone.
Going into the Thief segment on page 15, there's a couple of things here which are more like reading between the lines. So Fast Hands, which is your kind of entry-level Thief ability, you can take the search action. And I mean, that's not really groundbreaking in any way, but it doesn't say make a wisdom (perception) check. The fact that they're clearly taking some big kind of skills, like their actions, right? You're going to search, but a bit further down, second story work, there's a jump action. So it makes you wonder if I'm going to take the search action, but what you're doing to quantify that, to like justify that action, isn't necessarily a perception. It could be an investigation check.
I do like with the jump as well, with second story work, it's a home rule that I know most people do, which is they can use dex for jumping. That's now hard coded. That with second story work you can use dex instead of your athletics to jump.
Sure, I mean everyone's been wrong to do that up until now.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean
that's the DM sense. Talking right there, and I'm 100% of the way.
That's
acrobatics on fighters. Yes, please.
And that's their sort of like talk about cheating, isn't it? The way rogues cheat. That was definitely a way that, if you had a monk, you used it. Yeah.
I mean, at least now, if someone asks me if they can climb a wall with acrobatics, I can just point them at this and go,
you're right.
Gonna need 3 levels of rogue, mate.
Yeah.
You should rethink your life choices.
Yes.
Start stealing from people and then you can.
Yeah.
So 10th level, use magic device. I'll be honest, this part left me a bit sad. I mean, it's basically how it is now. You get to use more magic items, but spell scrolls. The fact that the special thing about the thief is that they can use a spell scroll despite not having those spells on a spell list insinuates that you can only use a spell scroll normally if you have that spell on your spell list. Now, I guess it's less restrictive if they're moving to Arcane, Divine, and Primal spells. I mean, yeah, we had moments where you, like in the Explorers of Elsewhere campaign, you managed to get your hands on a Featherfall scroll, and then realized that no one could cast it, so no one could use it.
Magnus to the rescue.
Yeah, so it was a bit like meh. But yeah, I mean that's it for Rogue. I say in the grand scheme of things.
Essentially, we're saying though that Rogue wasn't broken before.
No, and
So-
even in the video, he said just as much. He says Rogue is the one class that they were most afraid to touch because it's the one class that is universally loved. Like
apart from by DMs.
Apart from by DMs, yeah, I can imagine, yes. But they didn't want to touch it too much. They wanted to, and I think Dan used the terms earlier, they just wanted to tighten those bolts slightly, just to sort of make it hum a little bit more. But unlike Ranger, where obviously back in one of the surveys, it came out as one of the least played classes.
Yes.
And Rogue was right up there.
Well, up top with the fighter.
Or one level of Rogue, you mean?
Usually,
You get
yes.
sneak attack.
Wait, Anton, is that you sat there in Staff's house? Yes. So that's kind of it for the classes. There's some interesting stuff. Like I say, there's not. I think between these three classes, like Ranger Ranger has already received an overhaul through Tasha's. But yeah, so in the grand scheme of things, nothing too different there. Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying what we're doing here, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to check out the other videos here on the Explorers of Elsewhere channel, because we're awesome.